should be kept. The goal was to have drive-through bays to try to get a lift put in for the mechanics, so we've been doing more and more in-house. Years ago, they would outsource everything. So now Chris is a mechanic, so we do all our in-house stuff now, other than state inspections and things like that. So our goal is to grow out of the building here.
Would you want, so downstairs are 3 bays, right?
There's 3 bays,
There's
yeah.
the one
that's right
large,
alongside, yeah.
and it has that we do the repairs in, and 2 other bays. So
Yes.
there's 3 bays in the back of this building.
Mhm.
Is your thought that you would like them all 3 out of
I
here?
like to have the mechanic bay out of here.
Just the mechanic
Yeah.
bay.
Somehow we've discussed configuring the 1 bay to a shower, break room.
Locker room. Mm-hmm.
Because our locker room is the emergency management room. That's our locker room.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's our spillover conference room.
yeah. So that's where the guys change.
Right.
Yeah.
A shower was one of our biggest needs. We do a lot of weed whacking. It's nice to come back. We get poison, dog park issue with weed whacking over there. People don't pick up after themselves there after the dog park and we're weed whacking. Unfortunate things happen over there.
So you would need an additional structure to do the repairs, and any other additional, like that's 1 bay?
Yeah, we'd like to get a bay out there for a lift. Right now, we got jacks, we got air jacks out there. We need something we can get under. We don't have enough space above, overhead for the trucks to go up, just so we can get underneath there.
Right. And then the 381 COVID funds could be used though for that structure.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That would then leave the 100,000 can only be spent
On the schoolhouse.
on the schoolhouse.
And how that grant works is if we put the 100,000 in, we basically get reimbursed,
Correct.
correct? So we could just eliminate that altogether and focus solely on Steve. And your needs as well, Tracy, up here. I think your concern is a valid concern. While I say we live here in Upper Frederick, anything can happen, you know, and I would like to prepare for the worst case scenario. And I think by moving those bays, like you said, outside, it leaves us with that emergency management situation or room downstairs. I think that's a direction I would much rather go, invest everything I possibly could with your concerns in addressing your safety needs upstairs. And then that would alleviate the backing me into a corner. Once I put $100,000 into this school building, I'm gonna feel like I'm in a corner and oh my God, now I gotta finish this out. And that building's in rough shape. That's in pretty bad shape. That's just my big concern there.
Bill, may I
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question?
Yes, sir. Oh, wait, you guys said, hold on, so I told everybody I was gonna start using this daggone podium. Just tell me who you are, because I haven't been doing it.
Mike Petosa, I live on Woodchuck Lane.
Yes, sir.
Understanding the finances going on through here, but how does it affect the overall debt load on the township? My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're looking for over $1 million loan to deal with issues in Perkiomen Woods, or Perkiomen Crossing, I'm sorry.
So that project, so that project would be completely covered by the residents of that development.
So the total debt load would be covered.
Completely.
Okay, and what about, I guess the other issue was inherited buildings, right? Where they had the sewage issue and added on there.
Ivy Ridge.
Ivy Ridge, I'm sorry.
Ivy Ridge. So again, you know, all the expenses associated with that will have to be paid by Ivy Ridge.
Okay, so they're out of the equation then, as far as the, okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If we had the conference room over at the schoolhouse, would that could also be open to Boy Scout meetings or
Sure.
other meetings? Would we as a township be able to rent the space out if somebody wanted to use it for
Yes.
a little party, baby shower, bridal shower, whatever?
Yeah, and that's what we do
Like
with
rent those
the, yeah,
types of
that's what we
rooms?
do with the park pavilion. So we rent it for $50 if, someone's interested in reserving it, they can, secure it that way. So yeah, the schoolhouse can certainly be used that way as well.
Anybody else, any concerns? Everybody
I would love to hear comments and questions on, but he's gonna make
You
his
gotta,
voting, George.
you gotta tell me your name.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
George Jones, and I live on Clover Lane. I have a question for Steve. Would it make more sense if they put up a separate building that put everything that Steve's team does under one roof? It just seems to me that you have a little bit here, a little bit there, it's all fragmented, broken up. I would rather, if it was me, I would rather see everything under one roof. And a lot of these buildings nowadays, these steel buildings that can be put up,
Sure.
get a lot of square footage for very little price per square foot. So I don't know exactly what his needs are, but in my mind, I think having one building put up and just, project into the future a little bit, say 10, 15, 20 years. The township is eventually gonna grow. So my thought is that put everything under one roof and allow for expansion and go that route. Now, what that entails, I don't know, because I don't know exactly the vehicles he has, what he's trying to do there. But I would rather see it all consolidated. Keep it separate from this building.
Well,
This is an administrative building.
That's basically what we're trying to do now, is get everything away from here. The vehicles out. I mean, we already have the pole barn out there. We have the area that we can expand out there and get away from the inside of this building to have all of the equipment out there. I mean, you have a pole barn out there now.
Right.
So just
It
add
has
on to.
it has an additional 3 bays.
Yeah.
There's the 3 bays under
Yep.
here, and then there is a separate building out back with
Yeah.
3
more
bays,
bays.
with
Yeah.
3 more bays, so they wanna add
You
on
want to
to
add
that.
on to that, because we have the area in the back here that we
Right.
can just get away from this building.
But that would be the concept that you would go for, is like one building that would kind of meet all your needs.
Yes.
As long as it's in the financial parameters too, we can't go bananas,
Obviously, yeah.
$3 million out back for Steve. I love this guy, but I'm not sure $3
Yeah, you
million,
don't
we
know
got
if
the
you're
king
going
for
for $3
Steve.
million.
But I'm sure Ms. Tackett probably knows how to,
Right.
attach buildings or figure those types of things out.
And then the other thing with the schoolhouse, if you really want to put that on the back burner for now, but you have to use that $100,000, I would say, put it into something basic having to do with that building, say the foundation. Maybe fix the foundation, get a well put in. And you don't want to leave that money sitting on the table. One way or another, you should definitely allocate that $100,000 to go somewhere.
Well, it can only be used for the facility.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Right.
but to not
Yeah.
move on that and identify what you could do over there to use up that 100 grand, at least use that up for this year.
Yeah, the building will
least
just
you're moving.
continue to deteriorate if we
Well,
don't do
well, see,
something.
the other thing is too, if you do turn around and want to sell it, that becomes a selling point. That, hey, we redid the foundation, we put a new well in.
Well, we would have to double check the requirements of the grant. So it's possible that if we spend state money on the building, we may have to retain ownership of it.
Right,
So there could be conditions, we'd have to check on those.
right.
That's what,
If it's for
that's what I'm,
historic restoration.
right, that's a
Right.
concern I have, George, being stuck with it. Now you got this albatross stuck around your neck.
Right.
Instead of just saying, let's hang on a second. That grant, I'm not saying it's gonna be there next year or the year after, but there's always grants for things like that, Ms. Tracy, is that?
Well, it depends, there's a lot of competition out there,
Right.
so.
Right. So do you wanna lock yourself in, or do you wanna, possibly,
But if there's no strings attached to that $100,000, I would say definitely move forward and use it up, spend it on that building.
right, we'd
Why
have
we
to see
spend
what,
time.
what all's entailed in that grant right there.
Exactly.
That's what I would like to know too.
Yeah,
And then it goes to the pavilion, like we rented out, how many pavilion rentals do we actually get a year? Things like that, what type of revenue is gonna be generated from it by, and then, is that what I wanna be involved with, something like that? To me, I would just,
yeah.
rather than focusing on right here, rather than worrying about backing myself in a corner later on,
Right.
is my thought there.
Well, what I think you really need to do is identify projects, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year projects, and then start setting budgets.
Absolutely, and like
That's
Ms.
how I
Fisher and I are
would
new right now today, we're new at this.
Right.
So as we move through this and progress through the year, I'm sure these will be things that we start trying to set up, or maybe Ms. Tracy do, or is that things that we already have?
So, I mean, we had sort of a plan, a rough plan that, you know, the first step was going to be renovate the schoolhouse, move the meeting room over there, so then we could take on the next steps, depending on where
To
our
restructure here,
finance.
because once they start trying to do work in this space, there's nowhere for them to go.
Right,
Right.
Unless they do downstairs first,
right.
and then you could temporarily go downstairs, but,
Yeah. I don't really like the idea of not having the meeting room in our township building. It just, to me,
that doesn't bother me. But
We're
what
not-
is, I mean, in general, what do people think about restoring of the old schoolhouse? Is that something that, I mean, at least people in this room are interested in, or you think it's a bad idea? I mean, I'm one person, so I'd be curious what you guys think.
I,
State your name.
John Smith, I mean, I built around. Just listening to you guys talk about it, a couple words that keep coming up, and it's kind of spelling it out for you. Every time you're talking about the schoolhouse, we want to do this, we want this, we want this, we want, but every time we're talking about roads departments and stuff like that, we need to do this, we need to do that. I think we should look at our needs before we look at our wants. And that $100,000, the comprehensive plan wanted to take that property in, because we surround it, our park surrounds it. So we want to get that property, but do we necessarily need the building? Can't we put like a pavilion there or something, or a gazebo, and incorporate that into the park? And put our funds, like, you know, our code place and stuff like that, towards the roads department, getting their own building space, and then maybe expand conference room downstairs in this building. I mean, these things-
We looked at the downstairs alternative, and it didn't seem to work. ADA accessibility, and there were just a bunch of factors that really kind of worked against trying to do a meeting room accessing from the Blue Works facility. So that was an issue,
Right.
but we did look into
But, I
that.
mean, that's,
Yeah.
I just, I think you start dumping more money into that schoolhouse, you're gonna find out it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it has not even slightest resemblance of a historic building. I mean, if you go look at the old schoolhouses in other townships, it's one-room schoolhouse that is also, and it looks just like a one-room schoolhouse. And people relate there, there's people in the township who went to that school. Here, I don't know. I just think
Just
we all-
so you know, Merrill Mest went to that school.
But
And he's still alive.
I just see us throwing good money after bad, especially when you're talking $500,000.
You know, one of the unknowns, I think, is you said we want to go back and just pull off some of the siding to see what
See what kind of condition
see
the
what kind of
brick is
condition the
underneath.
building's actually in.
Yeah,
We don't know that yet.
because that would be one option, would be take that $100,000, just get the outside done, sealed up, so it looks good, and then decide what the final use for the interior of the building would be.
Now, is this a reimbursement grant or a matching grant?
It's a reimbursement grant.
Okay, so it's not our money we're playing with that.
Well, it is at first, and then they
But we get it
reimburse.
back. Right, but we get it back.
Yep.
Right, we don't have to match them with $100 and $100. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good way to go. Use that money for demolition or, I don't want to say total demolition, pulling apart to see what we have before we dump. You know, have
Is
more.
100,000
But then you're stuck
reasonable
with
to
Hmm?
Then you
do
might
the
be stuck.
outside, do you think, or?
It all depends on the condition of that brick.
Right.
That's the biggest unknown, because if you have to repoint a couple of spots here and there, it's not bad, but if they covered it up with that aluminum siding because the brick was so bad, and they're like, just cover it over so we don't see it, I don't know why that, when that was added and what the purpose was, so.
If that happens, is the brick salvageable?
It all depends. We're
Depends. Really gotta
doing
get a peek
A lot of
at it.
unknowns.
we're doing a historic house in Lambertville, New Jersey right now, and they opened up a bunch of walls, and here was getting water in over the years, and the brick was all crumbling just into a powder. this one again without unfortunately seeing what's underneath the siding.
What do you do in that case? Like, what is, I mean, that would be like a worst case scenario. You get in there and the
they're
brick isn't
able-
even salvageable. Then what?
It's everything is able to be fixed. I mean, you have to go in there and remove sections of brick at a time and rebuild the wall in pieces, basically. Because if you remove it all at once, it's gonna fall down. You have to remove like maybe a 3-foot section, leave a little bit, 3-foot section, leave a little bit, rebuild it. It all depends. It might just be little pockets. I don't know.
So, in looking at some of this report here, it did take water damage on the inside. Just looking
Is that
at
the report from Elton Thompson?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it says it right in here, and that's a primary concern for me too. So I own a house built in 1900, hand stacked, stone, horsehair, mud. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And what most of the people did, they would cover it up with plaster or something like that. But the damage is still done on the inside. So that was a major concern. When I read that part of this report, that was a huge concern for me because, as I mentioned to Ms. Tracy, that's a great expense, getting that repointed, getting it refixed, even the brick like you're talking about.
Yeah.
In between it just turns to powder, like you said, and then structurally you're compromised. So I'm thinking if we pull this siding off with this grant money and we see this, now we could really be, like I said, stuck with an albatross here. So
Is that something we could do first and try to get an understanding of what condition that brick is in?
Yeah, I mean,
And how long would
probably,
that take?
yeah, I mean, could your guys pull a few pieces
We could
off?
pull the aluminum off and see what it is, whether it's spalding or if it's gonna need to be repointed.
Yeah, we can take a look at it and read it on Thompson again, since they're the structural, they've already reviewed the majority of that building.
Yeah. The problem too is, Steve, if you take that off, now I gotta put that back on as well. You see what I'm saying? And if I'm looking at reselling this place just to try and get my money back, it's $180,000 worth of money here.
We'll pop it off nice.
Is that right? Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna hire my cable guy to do my electrical work. You know what I mean?
I don't know about the selling at that. I don't know that we want a resident on the property here. I don't know that that's something, I think
Yeah,
that's
I
probably
guess
why the
that's-
township wanted to buy the
Exactly.
property
That's
back and put
that's
it in
our
their long-term
entrance.
plan.
And, we've been fortunate in the past, the Richards, didn't have, the swing sets and the kiddie pools and like there's no storage out there. So who knows, how that would end up looking if we sold it off and then that's the entrance to our, township property.
Yeah, it sounds, because you
So-
do have an option of tearing it down, right? I mean, you get under there and you find out it's a disaster and it's not worth anything, not worth the money to save it. You do the exterior only, or you do the exterior interior and use the facility, make use of it, right?
Yeah.
True.
Parks Department.
I don't know. So,
As far as the grant goes, for that building, if we use the money, or if you start using money, that grant money, to investigate how the building actually is, tearing siding down and stuff like that, and you find out that, we just opened a hornet's nest of problems and expenses, can that building then be taken down with the grant money and incorporated into the park?
I don't know, I'd have to look at the details of the grant. I haven't looked at it in quite a while.
Yeah, it looks like I'm running ahead too quickly.
I got a question.
yes, sir.
Yeah, Jim Miller, Big Road. Yeah. Do we know if there's any asbestos in the schoolhouse?
There is in the flooring, so as part of the demo work, that would have to be taken into account.
Yeah, that could be hiding behind the siding as well. A
Could
lot
be.
of times they just put the siding right over asbestos.
So that's what's on the side of my barn.
Yep.
It's just, that's how I found out exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Yes, my name's Buck Reed, and I own a business called Reed General Contractors, and I do this type of work for a living. I renovate old houses. 634 East Philadelphia Avenue in Boyertown, which was 100 times worse than this. It was condemned when the porch fell into the street, and it was caving in on itself. Old brick, just like that. It even had what do you call it, chalk paint on it, so you couldn't even paint it properly on the inside. I also own 3044 Fagleyville Road, another house. That was built in 1850, same exact condition. You know, there's always a hornet's nest that you're gonna get into. This house is, it was built in 1900 and it's a 1,500 square foot house. Worst case scenario, if you find problems with that brick unless it's actually falling apart, what I would recommend is flat stuccoing the whole thing, not your typical stuff. I mean historical, you know, fix the roof on it if you're gonna do it. But by the time if you spend $500,000 on it and you purchase it for $275 or whatever it is, you bought a 1,500, you got a 1,500 square foot house on 0.40 acres, septic system and well. I mean, you got $800,000 into it. Gambone, Toll Brothers, NB Homes, they'll build a 3,500 square foot house with poured foundations for $300,000 and sell it for $550,000, $600,000. So, you know, you got to take that into consideration. It's just a 1,500 square foot house built 1900. Is it really worth sinking $800,000 into it? When on the market, it's only going to be worth $400,000.
Well, the 2-something was already sunk into it.
Well, right, but I mean, I'm
So
talking,
that's not going anywhere.
no,
Well,
purchase,
It was
purchase,
177.
It was 170.
purchase and renovation costs, you know, after renovation costs. You still got $800,000 into the place, you know, the total thing. You know, you gotta ask yourself, does it make good business sense? I mean, I do this for a living, so that's why I'm rattling. Asbestos siding like that, it's considered non-friable. I don't know why they call it that, but you can dump them right in the landfill. Now, if it's asbestos like wraparound pipes and stuff like that, that's called friable. What they mean by that is you can crumble it in your fingers and it just turns to dust. So the other stuff, you're not going to do that to it. So that's how that has to be dealt with specifically in a proper manner. But you can just take that and take it to Conestoga and the mini or dumpster service will flop it right in there. So.
Like Tom Bitzler, Big Road. You're talking about this upgrades that this building needs as well. You're saying, you know, hasn't been renovated in 40 years or so. If you put, you know, 500,000 into this, or we're putting nothing into this building, and then what would this building be used for if you move forward with that?
No, there would still be investments that need to be made here.
Okay. But you're talking about using up all the funds essentially.
We had gotten some plans from another architect that were very expensive, and
Right.
we think we could do it less expensive, so.
What estimates you got the one estimate, or are we getting several?
So we would
Three for this.
get more estimates if we move forward with the schoolhouse.
And then what would this building be used for?
So it would
Everything's
still be
moving.
admin. This space would be incorporated into the administration. We're pretty packed over there, and we'd like to ultimately get a codes person in-house a couple partial days a week so that they're more available to the public. And then, like they talked about, the work for public works over time, you know, getting that